Morning peeps, thanks as always for passing by the channel, much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. Thanks to everyone who's been getting involved so far. Welcome back to another episode of James Talks Sports. My little makeshift sign there. It's not the most visible thing, but we'll make do. Coming at you from a wet, cold Sunday morning. Thought we'd go for a run today, but not looking likely like. And as many of you know, I'm a huge boxing fan. So I'm going to look at some of the fights that happened over this weekend. Let's just give them a little check. Obviously the big one coming up was Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook. That went completely different to what I thought. I mean, I had predicted Terence Crawford to get the win, but not in the manner he did. I mean, he was brilliant from Terence Crawford. Kell Brook came in, looked fantastic on the scales, and looked good in the first two rounds, because Terence is known, one of the criticisms I've kind of had of him is the fact that he's a slow starter, and he does allow his opponents to get a few rounds in on him. And Kell looked to be starting well. Few good jabs, landed a few. I think even Terence's eye started swelling up a bit. But nah, that third round, the tide seemed to switch, and in that fourth round, we just saw a clinical finish from Terence. Nasty, the way he just seemed to. It was like as soon as Terence switched from that orthodox to that southpaw stance, the tide completely changed, and Kell was just in deep waters, and it was just a matter of time before he got rid of him. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about one of the top 3 pound for pound boxers in the world. Say it's, Canelo, Terence, Inoue. You can debate that as much as you want, but they are, I think it's fair to say, the top 3. And yeah, where do they go from here? I don't know. Terence, I mean, the big one we want for Terence is obviously that Errol Spence unification fight, but he's going to have to get himself over to PBC to get that. He's not going to get them over at top rank. I think his contract actually ends soon. I think after this fight he might have to either sign a new contract or he could well leave. If he does, get himself over to PBC, and if he can get himself, because Terence has got the problem where he's at the back of a long queue, because everyone wants that fight with Errol over there. We'll have to see how he gets on. If he can get a fight with a Sean Porter or a Keith Thurman or even a Mikey, he's still a name in the 147 division. As I think Terence's biggest problem is his resume. He hasn't got names on his resume. I know he's got Amir Khan, he's got Kell Brook, but he's not got any kind of live fighters who are good right now. Kell is kind of at the later end of his career. Amir Khan was at the back end of his career when he fought him, and I do think though, Terence, it's time to look at him as the best in the welterweight. He's best 147 for me. He's fantastic. Just the way he managed to just pick out Kell's game plan, knew it, and just that right hand was a jab that he managed to put him down with, and then just the way clinical finish. He just seemed to just a great fighter. We'll have to see how Errol gets on against Danny next month, and see how he manages after the car crash, and then we could be talking about potential unification fight between those two next year. That fight just seems to get bigger and bigger as it goes on. So I'm really rooting for him on that one. Big fan of Terence Crawford, big fan. For Kell Brook, I know there was an interview where he hinted about his potential retirement. I mean, look, I feel a bit sorry for Kell Brook, because if you look up the word mismanaged in the dictionary, Kell Brook's face should come up next to it. I mean, whoever thought that putting him in the ring against Golovkin was a good idea really needs to take a look at themselves. I mean, that was David versus Goliath. He was never gonna overcome that. Then he completely kills himself, get back at 147 again. They stuck him straight in there with Errol. I don't know. I mean, and then he's had a few gimme fights, and he's been so inactive recently and not lived the life to then strip himself back down to 147 again and getting in with pound for pound number 2 or 3. So Kell Brook really has had a mismanaged career. I feel sorry for the guy. I mean, if he went out in a better way from this fight, maybe if he went out round 9 or 10 and put up a good fight, give Crawford some problems, there'd still be a chance for him to get fights. Certainly, you know, a Danny Garcia or a Mikey or a Keith Thurman or someone like that. But we'll have to see. I mean, obviously the Amir Khan fight's kind of still there, but you know for a fact that Amir Khan doesn't want that fight. What's Amir Khan even doing right now? Is he still chasing Manny Pacquiao or Floyd? I don't know. But I think Kell Brook, he's quality. He's big for the weight. He's strong. He's got a good jab. It's just a shame he's also in the nasty predicament that he's kind of between weights. He's he has to kill himself to get down to 147, and he looks amazing, but he's a Ferrari with no engine. Whereas if he goes up to 154 and you've got Charlo, Jarrett Hurd or Harrison, they're massive. They're gonna completely destroy him. So it's a sticky situation. I hope he doesn't retire, because I like Kell Brook. He's a very talented boxer, powerful, strong, good lad. I just only hope that he can bounce back somehow and maybe just find a few fights that he can have over here in Sheffield and London at the O2 Arena, maybe be on a couple of undercards or something like that, and have a few more before he does hang up the gloves, so he can really kind of round off his career in a good way, so it's not going to be remembered for these kind of like losses and stuff like that. What else did we see? Tommy Fury fought some tomato can who had a record of like 0-11 or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I get that Tommy Fury's young and he's kind of come in the game, but got to do better than that, really. It's just in my view, anyway. We saw Katie Taylor against Gutierrez. Looked very good in that fight. Big fan of Katie Taylor's. Put her down in the 4th round, I believe it was, and just seemed to win every round from then on. I think one judge 189, then 99, 91, I think it was the scorecards or something like that. I watched that on my phone because it was free on YouTube, which I like, because the more people do that, the more people will get interested, especially in women's boxing, which I've got to give props to Eddie Hearn for, because no one really is. He's the only lad who seems to actually be pushing women's boxing at all, because Frank Warren isn't doing anything. They're not doing anything in Top Rank or DAZN or PBC, and Eddie Hearn is genuinely trying his best. He wants to get Katie Taylor in them big fights. Props to him for actually trying to bridge the gap between male and female boxing, and that's what we want to see. I mean, we just have to look at what Dana's done over in the UFC, where you've had superstars like Ronda Rousey when she was there, Holly Holm, and then you've got like Nunes, who's just a wrecking machine, and she's incredible. I think Katie Taylor has a potential, and there's some good fights to be made for her. Terry Harper and Rachel Bell were also on that card. Solid wins for them. There's big fights to be made in the female boxing world. If you look at Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall, there's also Nat Jonas was in, I think she was commenting for Sky or something like that. She was with Johnny Nelson. Her versus Katie Taylor, big fight. Especially over here, you have Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall unification, with Katie Taylor versus Nat Jonas as the co-main event. That's pay-per-view. Pay-per-view in my eyes. I'd pay to see that. And then of course you've got the likes of Shannon Courtney. You can always have Terry Harper come up from 135 to go and fight Katie Taylor 135. Katie Taylor can go up to 140 and challenge for some of those world titles. So great to see her back winning again. Hoping that female boxing can just get bigger and bigger, and let's see where it goes. Eddie Hearn and the Matchroom Machine are certainly behind her, so we'll see what happens. But I have hope. 3 things I have hope for. Number 1, that Terence Crawford can get his name. I think that win over Kell Brook has certainly shown just how good he really is, and I think that will get him more notoriety so he can really get himself into that mixture of the PBC fighters, maybe the Sean Paulers, Keith Thurmans, the Danny Garcias, and then so he can, if he gets one of them, he can go to Errol and get that unification fight we all want. So I have hope for that. I have hope for Kell Brook, because I do think with a guy with that much talent shouldn't go out like that. He should have a couple more fights over here in the UK, 2 or 3 maximum, then hang up the gloves. And I have hope that female boxing can slowly but surely catch up and bridge the gap between the women's and the men's, because the UFC have living proof. I mean, you see cards with female fighters all the time. You know, look what they've got going over in China, and that Polish fighter, I can never pronounce the name, probably Han Wanaz or something like that. But it'd be great to see, so here's hoping that that can happen, and best of luck to Terence and to Katie Taylor. What do you guys make of it? Comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, God bless.